to you, and you can send that to mates as well if you like. The webinar today is called 24 Hours Not Enough, 6 Habits to Make Time Count. And actually I thought I would introduce this by putting on my video. So let's have a look if I can do that. And my control panel is not allowing me to do that. And I got all dressed up for nothing. That's a great pity. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's forget about the video. You'll stay tuned with the slides if that's okay. So what is this all about? These 6 habits to make time count. It's really all about the transactions that we have in life. So we often put a lot of energy in, we invest resources, time, just really cognitive ability to strategize what we're doing in life. And we don't always find that we get a lot of return. So many of the people that we are speaking to in corporates are saying to us, my goodness, I'm feeling tired. I spoke to a lady in Cape Town here yesterday who's got an enviable job. I obviously can't say what job she has. But she said, Joni, I have 3 teenagers and I've just had cancer, colon cancer to be specific, and I'm just hoping that they don't remember me saying day in and day out, I am so tired, I'm overwhelmed, I just can't get through what I need to get through, because that's what your kids will remember. We often give up our health for our wealth. So this morning's about 6 strategies to help us as high-performing individuals look at our transactions. How do we create assets around our health to drive our personal and our organizational performance? So there are a few things we're going to ask you to think about, but most importantly, our philosophy, which Celynn will speak about later in a bit more detail, is around taking away a tiny habit from this, so that that tiny habit becomes a good habit. It's a ritual, it's entrenched, and those little shifts that happen week in, week out, month in, month out, really create a better you, a more holistically healthy, vibrant you. And that's what we're looking at with FAB and the FAB Quotient and boosting our FAB Quotient. So let's start off with Celynn's first part of this acronym, and she'll speak about the H.
Good morning, everyone, and perhaps just to check that you can hear me and I'm not just talking to myself, feel free to write a comment or a question on the right-hand side in your control panel under questions. We'd just like to be sure that you can hear us clearly and also that you can see the slides. So at the moment you should see a green background slide, and on the slide is the first transaction or strategy that we need to have in place in order to manage our health while we're building wealth and not compromise the one for the other. And that is about harmony, not only for health, but for longevity. And why is this important? Because your habits today will become your history tomorrow. And we know that part of managing our health is part of managing our hormones, and they need to be in harmony. A personal story of a close friend of mine who left South Africa to go manage an international team and ended up doing a lot of travel. He was based in the Middle East, reported into Rotterdam and Chicago. So once a week at least, he was doing 1 or 2 international cities. What happened was, to cope with the jet lag and high stress, he would do a lot of running. So much so that he actually managed to run 4 ultra marathons in that one particular year. And he also craved comfort food. For him, it was hamburgers. And what happened is, over 18 months, he had a niggle in his hip. But because he loved the running so much and needed to release the adrenaline from the stress, he just ignored it. But we know that at some point your body will scream at you. And what ended up was, he was back actually in Cape Town. He came to the Sports Science Institute where Professor Wayne Derman is. And he had a hip replacement at the age of 42. And put on weight and realized that actually for those 18 months, he was not managing his chemistry, rather his chemistry was managing him. And because of the stress, he had high adrenaline. That gave him the energy to run. What also happened is that he had high cortisol. Now, cortisol is produced when we're stressed, and a little bit of cortisol is okay, but a lot of cortisol over a long period of time is not okay. It may make us feel temporarily bulletproof, which is why he didn't really feel how bad the pain was in his hip. but long term, it can lower your immune system. And it can actually make you prone to falling ill, which is exactly what happened with him. He ended up getting colds and flus quite often. And with the lack of sleep, his serotonin levels in his brain were low, his dopamine was not that high, and so he looked for the comfort food, and hamburgers are a perfect example of comfort food. So our question to you as we move on to the next slide is, are you managing your chemistry in terms of ultimate performance and health? Because I'm not sure if you've had breakfast, I hope you have, but what you've had for breakfast right now is digesting in your tummy, and those raw molecules from the ingredients of the food that you eat are getting pulled into your bloodstream. Your blood is then traveling through your body, crossing the blood-brain barrier, and I'm just going to pause there because two people have mentioned that they can't see slides. So Joni, can you just make sure that on your side it's sharing, just in case it's something we can do? Because Nella and Doe, thank you for that feedback. They can't see the slides. And then I'll give you...
Then I'm going to just go...
because it's really difficult to concentrate, we know, when all you can do is hear. It's easy to get distracted with WhatsApp and social media. Excellent. On my side, Joni, I can see your slides.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So now we're looking...
Doe
and Nella, if you can let us know. Excellent. Seeing them. Thanks, Kathy. Thank you, Marlette. So we can see there, what you eat determines what goes into your gut, which then determines what's in your bloodstream and what enters your brain. And really important, if you're trying to manage your mood, trying to manage your chemistry, so we all want more serotonin, more dopamine, because they make us feel happy and energized and motivated. And we want to try and reduce cortisol. What we choose to eat can help us do that. So what do we eat? I'm sure you're thinking, okay, great, Celynn, I want more of that. What should I be having for breakfast? There's a lot. And today we're going to keep it simple because we're going to end off with tiny habits and the psychology around behavior change. And if you look at the next slide, this is the one thing that I'd like you to think about if you're not doing this already. So what we know is the health of your gut, of your colon, determines the health of your entire body. Your colon is in fact called your second brain because it has as many neurons, well, more neurons linked to it and more nerve endings compared to any other organ besides the brain. And one ingredient that most of us in this Western society are missing are fermented foods. Now, fermented foods, in particular, two easy ones are sauerkraut and kefir, and I'll tell you what those are in a moment. They put back some of the good bacteria that is often missing in our gut because of high stress and because of bad diet. So if you're drinking a lot of caffeine, coffee, maybe eating refined foods, chances are your colon bacteria are not happy, and certainly if you've had antibiotics, they won't be happy. So what you can do is try and have a tablespoon or two of fermented foods, and one of the easiest foods to make, and I say easy because Joni and I are doing this ourselves, is sauerkraut. We're happy to share a recipe. If you don't want to make your own sauerkraut, although it's quite fun because you get to mash up cabbage and salt, those are the two ingredients you need to make this wonder food, you can also buy it. So one of the best retailers that I found that delivers great service and lots of backup information and support material is not the Joni that's on the line, but another Joni. See, Jonis are amazing. So Joni's Kitchen is a South African business, and she specializes in fermented foods. So you can buy sauerkraut from her, but at 70 Rand a jar, I consider you to think about making your own. It's not that difficult. And we will share the recipe with you. Kefir is the other food. Kefir is a fermented milk that also brings in good bacteria, and you can use that as an alternative to a liquid yogurt when you're having your cereals. So those are two things that you can add into your diet that can help your gut, that will also help your brain and help create harmony within your system, certainly with your hormones in your brain. So then, Joni, over to you to take us into energy.
Right, so energy is renewable. What are your daily energy rituals? Time is finite. You know that. That's not news to you. You've got 24 hours in the day. What can you get done? And so many of us say, oh my goodness, I wish I had time to, or I ran out of time, or I never have time to. So we really need to look at how much energy we have and what are the rituals around that. What are the daily rituals which will boost your energy? So to take into account the fact that there are seasons and our bodies have rhythms, there's systems, they have seasons as well. It's really important to listen to your body. And again, many of the exec teams that we deal with say, gee, it's really sad we're missing this member now. He or she is not at this workshop that you're doing because they have burnout. So I'm intrigued by the fact that we will push ourselves and we'll work to the nth degree, late nights, weekends, high stress days with no breaks in that day, just to get our deliverables done and meet our performance requirements, and we will completely ignore our bodies. So when your body does need some rest and digest time, how are you honoring it? How are you honoring it like the trees honor the seasons? So it's really to be more present, be more aware, be more in the moment. So here's a very recent war story, as recent as 5 o'clock this morning. I'm in Cape Town, as I said, and I have found this fantastic exercise regime with my great friend Nandi called Switch. It's an hour's workout, and every 2 minutes, as the name says, you switch exercises. But this is in a darkened room with loud music, a guy behind the DJ desk, smoke machines. I mean, that's hilarious. There are lung-friendly smoke machines, and it's incredibly good fun. So we've been to a few of these while I've been in Cape Town, and I set my alarm for 4:59 this morning. Unfortunately, 4:59 p.m. So I woke up at 7:01, which was hilarious. I haven't woken up at that time in months. And when I woke up, I was frustrated because I was dying for my last session of Switch. But I did wake up thinking, wow, my body seriously needed that extra 2 hours of sleep. And what other ways can I really get my energy going today? And I need to think about that. So today I will be in a few meetings. I will be traveling back to Johannesburg, but I'll be making sure that I do a bit of walking in between the meetings. I'll be obviously walking at the airport. And Celynn will speak to you about Activate just now, straight after this actually. And that is certainly a way to energize your body. But I am intrigued with the fact that we don't honor our bodies with what kind of rest and digest we need. So the rest and digest is all about getting good quality sleep. And if I have to say there's one thing that is very high on my value ladder, is getting the required 7 hours sleep that I need a night. Some of us need 6, some of us need 8 or 9. You need to work out exactly what you need in order to rest and digest. So if you think about the challenging, turbulent times you're going through, not enjoying your boss or your job, or looking to change careers, or trying to kind of entangle your way forward out of a difficult relationship. Very often we spend a lot of energy trying to navigate our way through these tough times, and we don't allow the body to have that seasonal ebb and flow, so to have enough sleep per night. And really that's when we have the ability to hardwire new ideas. We wake up fresh, our brain rejuvenates. So if you're going to want to make a tough decision or think creatively or start something innovative in terms of a new business, you have got to allow this beautiful system that you have called your body to rest and digest. We are in fight or flight mode all day. The body, as Celynn spoke about earlier, is producing these hormones, cortisol being the big damaging one that really produces brain fog. So when you're on the go, and you haven't even had time during the day to have a quick sit down, have a cup of herbal tea, or maybe you need a caffeine injection, just to kind of let your brain simmer down a bit so that you haven't got that racing heart feeling or racing brain feeling, your energy is going to be expended and you're going to be completely worn out by the end of the day. So I'm absolutely vociferous about the fact that these rest and digest periods are not only the good night's sleep, but actually little behavior interrupters during the day. So as a behavioral strategist, I have noticed that people just will push the envelope to Friday, to the weekend. Okay, Joni, I'm just going to push the envelope to that long weekend and work excessive hours. And of course, your body, that accumulated burnout is what creates inflammation and dis-ease in the body. So I'm hoping that people start to learn in terms of this renewable energy is that A day is a day. There's a sunrise, there's a sunset, and to honor your body in every 24-hour period, not to say I will rest on the weekend, or as I horrifically hear people say in the workplace, I will rest when I die. Let's honor our bodies and let's look at energy and having great energy 7 days of the week, not just by Saturday afternoon when you've slept late on Saturday morning and had an afternoon nap on Saturday afternoon. Let's have a look that we've got energy each and every day. So whatever you're doing mindfully, you're enjoying what you're doing. It's not just this horrendously fast treadmill that we're on. So I hope you take something out there. If it's nothing else, it's to make sure that this last slide that you see here, that you get enough lulla time and you make friends with your pillow. So let's really add to this energy discussion and speak about activate.
So activate is what we've spoken about before. It is the A of the FAB quotient. And it's so important that we've dedicated a third of our book to this. And we constantly drive this point because so many of us are not waking up at 4:59 a.m. when we do get the alarm setting right and going off and exercise for an hour. Many of us don't have the inclination, the time, or perhaps even the ability because of our own personal circumstances. So what can we do? The one thing we can do is use motion during our day to shift our emotion. We know that when we're stressed, when we're tired, when we sit for too long, and sitting is the new smoking, what happens is our metabolism slows down and we tend to compromise on body posture. And so we slump over our desks or slump over our steering wheels. So perhaps right now, how about we do an activation? Now, I'm going to promise you I'm doing this. I know Joni very well. She's going to do this too. Nobody can see you besides maybe your cat, or if you are in an office, who knows, you may just start a trend. What I'd like you to do is to sit up straight, open up your chest, put your shoulders back, and pretend you're doing butterfly stroke in the Virgin Active swimming pool, except you're doing it vertically towards the ceiling. So let's do 5 of those big circular motions, lifting your arms forward and over. And forward and over, I'm on 2, 3, 4, 5. Brilliant. And now do it backwards. So reverse that. Double stroke backwards as if you were doing backstroke but butterfly. I wonder if anybody does do that. I haven't quite seen that. And just another 2. And what's this doing is...
I've just done that, Celynn, and my back is cricking beautifully because I've done no exercise this morning. So actually, just to build on what you're saying and not to interrupt you, but it's thank you for making us do that, because we sit at our desks and our shoulders become our earrings. And just sitting here for half an hour this morning, my back needed that. It's cricked out. So thank you for that.
Brilliant. Excellent. So that's exactly what an activation is. It takes you a minute or 2, and it's just to get your body moving. If you don't have the time, just stretch in your desk, at your desk rather, in your chair. But ideally, we'd like you to disengage every hour for a few minutes. If you can get your heart rate up, even better. So if you can find maybe a flight of stairs and go up and down the stairs for a minute or 2, what happens when you lift your heart rate is you increase blood flow. Blood flow carries oxygen, and oxygen is what your brain, your wizard, needs and thrives on. So on to the next slide, we'll make the link between movement and your brain. There's a chap called Dr. John Medina who's written a great book called Brain Rules, where he goes through 12 principles that help you to manage your brain and your body and your health. The very first brain rule is about the link between motion, so movement and exercise, and how important it is for particularly the front of the brain. So the front of the brain, just behind your forehead, is called your prefrontal cortex. And when we move, when we exercise, our brain produces a compound called BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, and that increases those synapses that Joni spoke about. So literally, exercise can make you cleverer and smarter and can help you trigger your wizard. If you go to the next slide, you'll meet somebody that Joni and I know very well. This man is very dear to Joni. So the handsome chap on the left is called Don Peddie. He is 87 years old. This man still teaches aqua aerobics and runs courses at his church. I don't know about you. It feels like I'm a long way from 87, but that is who and what I want to be like at that age. So we know that somebody who stays active, so Don has remained active, he does activate his body, helps you to keep not just physically fit and your weight in check, but also keeps your brain active. So if there's something you'd like to do today, how about you set an alarm for mid-morning? Because you may think, what a fabulous idea. I want to switch on my brain. I want to activate my body. Before you know it, it's going to be lunchtime and you might not have left your desk. So a good thing to do is to actually set an alarm, ideally every hour. But even if you start with mid-morning and mid-afternoon today, that may be just the trigger you need to get up. Another way to remind you to get up and move is whenever you make or receive a phone call, try not to make or receive phone calls while you're sitting at your desk. Of course, it's different if you're in your car, but ideally get up and stand and stretch. If you can walk and talk, even better. And that's one way to include activations during your day. Thank you. Joni, over to leading yourself.
Absolutely. So if we look at emotional quotient, there are 5 pillars: self-awareness, self-regulation, and self-motivation are the first 3, clearly all about managing and leading yourself. The last 2, just for completeness, are empathy and understanding. That's 1 pillar. And then the 5th pillar is social skills, the ability to communicate, to influence, to persuade, to get your message across. So leading yourself, it's a choice. Are you your own CEO, Chief Energy Officer? So how are you making choices around being more self-aware, around self-regulating? And self-regulating, I find a very interesting concept. Willpower is embedded in that, but just the ability to speak up if you're a quieter personality, the ability to say no, the ability to push back, the ability to speak up and be heard in your meetings or in your relationships. Self-regulation, if you're a louder personality, is the ability to know, or not the ability to know, let's rephrase it, to know when to zip it, to know when to keep quiet. So to not voice your every irritation or every judgment, but to keep quiet and think, is this really necessary? So there are many ways we can lead ourselves. We certainly do need to motivate ourselves. And around health, many of the people we're dealing with are not being proactive and checking in. So not going for their assessments, not finding out in terms of their cholesterol levels, their BMI, etc. So make sure that you're on top of knowing these things so that it's not a catastrophe in terms of a symptom where you start getting terrible ulcers or bleeding or whatever, and it's just you've gone that step too far. You could have nipped it in the bud. Celynn, many years ago, started a concept and has now put it into an app, which is called the Wellculator. It is absolutely phenomenal. We don't have this on the mass market circuit, but we can certainly do it in corporate teams. And what we find is that when people answer these questions in the Wellculator on their phone as an app, it builds tremendous self-awareness, which, as I just said, is the first pillar of emotional intelligence. So people are just unaware of the fact that they should be having those 5 servings of fruit and veggies a day, or how much water they should be having, or that there is sugar hidden in 80% of our foods. So there are very simple questions. There's a level 1 and there's an advanced level 2. But if you are working in a team where you would really like people to lose a bit more weight, be more productive, have more energy, have more vitality, collaborate better, the foundation of performance is our physicality. So if you're finding that your team just doesn't get through their deliverables for the day, the week, the month, the quarter, it could have a lot to do with the fact that people have the silent derailers like migraines and just ongoing nausea, or just horrendous fatigue that they just can't get out of that misty, dim, foggy way of being. So think about how you can enable yourself and your significant others around you, your team or your family members, to go and be checked. Are your iron levels correct? What is it that you could shift, a slight shift, to give you more energy so that you can be your chief energy officer?
Joni, could I mention a story?
We work in meetings with... Yes, please do.
If you go back to the slide on the Welculator and the health check, a very personal story is actually the IT developer that we used initially to help us with our Welculator application development was a very intelligent, smart guy who sadly, well, over the year that I worked with him, his health deteriorated. And what happened in December a year ago, so not the last December, the one before, was he was hospitalized with extreme fatigue. And he sadly passed away. And what happened was he had a condition that really people should not die of today. The condition is called hemochromatosis. And Joni mentioned checking something as simple as your iron levels. So if he had checked his iron levels, he might have realized just how bad his condition was. Because hemochromatosis is a condition, it's genetic, where your body stores iron. So another word for iron is, iron in blood is heme. And it can get very toxic. It can interfere with your liver function and your brain. And that is what happened to him. But perhaps he was stubborn. Perhaps he just didn't listen to his body. Perhaps he didn't speak to people. He certainly didn't go to his doctor. And he ended up too late in hospital with liver failure and some brain damage. So that's just a personal story of somebody who has high EQ, high IQ, but sadly wasn't listening to their body or thinking about their FAB quotient. So thank you, Joni, for triggering that.
Great. And as you say that, it obviously makes me feel sad. But I also think about the fact that why do I wake up in the morning and do the FAB quotient work? So my single-minded purpose and meaning in life is that we build this awareness, is that people are not sick, tired, stressed, but they become more energized, embrace stress. Stress is not going to go away, but more balanced and harmonious in the way that they live and fulfill their own dreams. So let's hope today, even if one of you on this webinar takes a significant look at a health check and checks out your health, that you pick something up and you make a big shift in your own life in terms of your vibrancy and your energy. So taking into account that most of us are sitting in meetings, or not most of us, but I'm sure many of people on this webinar, is that this is a big culprit of dis-ease and the body being out of kilter in the workplace, is we are socialized into thinking if we're not sitting behind our desk and vummering away at our emails and proposals and strategies, or going from meeting to meeting, we are not having a good, hard working day. And that's all we seem to do. In fact, some of the meetings that we attend are 3, 4, 5 hours long, maybe with a quick tea break, maybe not, some of them, which is really absolutely horrendous. So Celynn and I, working with a few teams, came up with this concept called Fabagize Your Meetings. I'm not going to read you this 2-pager, but just highlight the fact that we do need a new normal. We do need to make sure that we are not in back-to-back or sitting in a meeting where there's just back-to-back presenters. People, if you go back to Dr. Medina and brain rules that Celynn spoke about, your brain can only absorb, and I'm sure you've heard this, for 15 to 20 minutes. So if it's a classroom, a lecture at a university, or a business meeting, we should be thinking about how do we integrate small, macro, what we call macro bursts of activity so that the brain can shift gear. Having a presenter present for an hour and then straight into the next presenter for an hour absolutely is not good for memory retention, and the brain just starts to shut down very quickly. Add a few toxic carbonated soft drinks, and I'm using the word toxic there with tongue in cheek, but biscuits full of sugar and pastries and mints, which we think is good. Really, it's just a whole cocktail of non-productivity sitting on that boardroom table. And then, of course, you've got people with their cell phones underneath the boardroom table, clicking on the latest WhatsApp or a message or checking their emails, even worse. And you've got a complete waste of time with 10, 12 people around a boardroom table, and you've got very little productivity happening. So we speak about how to do it, and maybe just 2 pointers there: jugs of water with beautiful mint, lemon, cucumber, other sliced fruit in those jugs of water, and make sure that you've got healthy snacks. And Celynn, maybe it's part of our follow-up letter, we should send people the Eat Right Healthy Snacks. which can be delivered to your office door. We don't manufacture them. We partner with a company called Eat Right. And there are magnificent snacks, quite an assortment from nuts and low GI biscuits to dried fruit to biltong. And what I love about them, because I can vummer with everything in life, that includes eating and working and running, is that they are packed in individually wrapped little packages that are the exact right portion size. So often we go to that biltong and eat far too much at one sitting, or this is vacuum packed in a beautiful little vacuum pack, and that's exactly perfect as a little snack. So we've got other toolkits, ideas to fabagize your meetings. We've even got an agenda which shows what you can do at the start of a meeting, mid-morning, lunchtime, just to make those meetings fun and energized, and most importantly, that we start to use our brains in the way that the brain is designed. And we just, the ongoing way of business meetings, we have all got out of the realm of making them short, sharp, concise, and snappy. And we would certainly like to encourage you, being your own chief energy officer, even if you're not the head of your team, is that you have here's the energy and the dynamism to make that change. Of course, let's go back to basics here. If you have that dynamism, you'll be making the right choices. So life is a choice. Every day is a choice. From, you know, goodness me, it's lunchtime, and what's the easiest thing to order for the meetings is just a whole lot of pizzas. Well, is it the easiest thing? Is it the right thing just to have a whole lot of pizzas slapped on that boardroom table full of grease and, you know, unhealthy stuff, versus having a bowl or two of fruit and some nuts? Actually, that would nourish you over lunchtime. So think about your daily choices and the unintended consequences. I certainly know, I know my body particularly well. I love dark Lindt chocolate, as Celynn knows, and my kids know. But if I have that at night, I will most definitely, guaranteed, wake up the next morning with a headache. So I'm not saying that I never have it, but I just really have to limit that. So think about, what are the options that I have here? I mean, could I, after supper, I'm just looking at that visual that you're all looking at, is those magnificent blueberries. Some of those in some beautiful full fat plain yogurt with a few nuts on top. I mean, that would be superb. And actually, Celynn, I was reading one of your gorgeous recipes. I don't know why, an old one I printed out, possibly because I wanted to make it. And Celynn will speak about her recipes later on in this webinar. But I thought, wow, that's a really good dessert. One that you have, Celynn, where you've got fruit and you bake it and you make some crumble on the top. And it's a nice hot dessert. We're going into winter with some plain yogurt on top. So there are innovative ways of really enjoying food and making the right choices. And that's really what leading yourself is all about. And yeah, I've concentrated on food here because that's the basics of fueling your body in terms of your energy. But it's choices in terms of who do I choose to partner with, in terms of a life partner. So if you're single and you're dating, are you with the person that brings out the best in you? If you're in a work environment, are you sitting in the right seat on your team, playing to your strengths? Is there something else that you could be doing that gives you more juice in your tummy? I spoke about self-motivation earlier as a key pillar of your emotional quotient. So are you waking up in the morning thinking, wow, I can make a difference. I value what I do. I contribute to the value proposition of my organization. What am I doing that gives me that juice and dynamism to really look forward to the 5 days in the week, to look forward to what I'm delivering? So life really is about making these choices. Over to you, Celynn.
And when we make choices, that's exactly what they are. So, Joni, you said that lovely expression around our daily choices and their unintended consequences. And really, when we look at good health and gaining health and wealth together, it's not haphazard. It's not something that just happens by chance. Just like those of you creating your own wealth plan, you might have an investment, you've thought about it, you're taking aside some money, maybe you've got a policy, we spend time choosing the right short-term insurance, long-term insurance, and the same should really apply for our health. It should be thought through. And when we think things through, it helps us to set ourselves up for success. I mean, many of us know the expression that if you fail to plan, then you plan to fail. So Joni is a behavioral strategist, and what I've learned from her is that no matter how smart we are, all of us are prone to cognitive biases. We're prone to decision fatigue. So what that means is we can have the best intentions, but other things will get in the way and throw us off course. So one way to help us not get thrown off course, if we look at the next slide with the heading Tiny Habits, you'll see a man. His name is BJ Fogg. He's a professor at Stanford University, and he spends most of his time committed to understanding how we can shift behavior in the lifestyle health space using technology, using digital health, but also using a concept called tiny habits. So if we want to create new behaviors and we want to shift the way that we do things, add something in, stop doing something, one technique is to create a tiny habit. What you're welcome to do, and what I highly recommend you perhaps do, is visit his website, and you can sign up for free to be part of a tiny habits journey, which is 5 days. So generally they start this every Monday, and they take you through how to create 3 tiny habits that week. And the main point around creating tiny habits is you need 3 things in place. So if you want to remember the acronym, I know Joni at our webinar earlier this month spoke about how important it is to keep our brains focused, and we can avoid potential dementia and memory loss if we create acronyms. So one acronym you can remember is MAT, M-A-T. So on the next slide, you'll see a fancy graph. You don't need to look at any of the detail. All you need to look at are the 3 words in blue: motivators, triggers, and ability. And that tells us what we need to be successful in a new behavior. The first thing we need is we need the motivation. So just because Joni gets up early in the morning to run doesn't mean that's the best thing for you. Maybe you're better off exercising at the end of your day or bringing in more activations during your day. For instance, myself, some of you may know that I have French heritage. I'll be in Paris actually from Saturday working on our Fab Going Global model. I'll be there for a month. And yes, I will drink champagne at every opportunity that I get, whereas other people choose not to drink alcohol. So it's important that whatever new behavior you decide to shift, to change, is that you have the personal motivation to do that, because that's what's going to pull you through those stressful times. Then you need the ability. It doesn't help that I say that for the month of May, I'm going to make a comeback at my Virgin Active gym because I'm not going to be in the country. So I don't have the ability to do that. So having the ability is important. That means keeping it simple, and it needs to be easy to incorporate into your lifestyle. Some of you are traveling a lot. Some of you are on the road every day. You're not behind a desk. So maybe drinking more water and having a jug of water on your desk is not going to work if you're in your car. Maybe then you need to think about having a water bottle, for instance, or having a glass of water with every cup of coffee when you visit a client. And then the third aspect that BJ Fogg and his team have found to be incredibly important in shifting behavior is to have a trigger. One example, if we stick to the drinking water, a trigger could be when you brush your teeth, for instance. It's good to use triggers around things that you automatically do every day. So if you're brushing your teeth in the morning, if you keep a big glass there in the bathroom, what you can do is use brushing your teeth as a trigger to drink a glass or 2 of water. So you'll do that hopefully at the start of your day and at the end of your day. A trigger for me has been coffee. So Joni and I probably learned this from Joni, whenever we have a coffee meeting or a meeting in a coffee shop or we drink tea or coffee, she always asks for a glass of hot water and lemon to come with that. So it's like the other hot drink is the trigger for the water. So if you'd like to know more about Tiny Habits, we recommend that you visit his website and try it out. And we will be talking more perhaps on other webinars about how to use BJ Fogg's findings in terms of your own personal life and shifts. And that leads us on to when we're doing all these things. So we've covered 5 strategies and we'll summarize them in a moment. But ultimately, they give us great health, but they also give us happiness. And it really is an advantage. Over to you, Joni.
Thank you. So yes, the sixth strategy is happiness. It's an advantage, and it certainly is a precursor to a meaningful and purposeful life. So we've have an image there of a Yorkie, and that's because Celynn and I have Yorkies. So Celynn's Yorkie is named after her favorite champagne. Those of you who don't know her, click all. And my Yorkie is actually my daughter's Yorkie, and his name is Sammy. They are great mates. They make us laugh. We'll easily stop what we're doing. We can be on deadline and sitting in my office, and the Yorkies are playing, and we'll always make that 30 seconds just to have a look at what the dogs are doing, and that spontaneous laughter. Again, it boosts the energy. So it's how do we add a bit more happiness to our life, and what can we do about it? There is tremendous research on this topic. My favorite book is Sean Aker's book, The Happiness Advantage, and that was the book that really got me to think about it. There are certainly positive psychologists who have been around for many years. So the father of positive psychology is actually Martin Seligman. He wrote a book called Flourish, and that's also a really good read. But if you are not into the deep psychology like I am, but merely looking at practically what's the latest research and what can we do, The Happiness Advantage is a very quick and easy read. If you are time poor, which some of you are going to complain about, then simply go onto TED Talks and watch his 20-minute TED Talk. He is incredibly infotaining. So the first little war story he speaks about is him and his sister, him pushing his sister off their double bunk bed and her falling and breaking her arm, which he convinced her that she was a unicorn and she would still be absolutely fine with that broken arm and that she shouldn't wake up their parents. So he is really hilarious. And he worked at Harvard Business School, so his research is deep, robust, and really, really good. And it's fascinating that in this world of overwhelm and social media, that sadly our EQ is dropping. So that's well researched, is that our EQ is not as good as our parents' EQ and our grandparents' EQ. And that's because of what Celynn mentioned earlier as well, our decision fatigue, but just so much happening with not a lot of downtime. And the one stat really at the start of this book that got me to sit up and take a deep breath and think about how we can include happiness into the FAB quotient is the stat that 50 years ago, the average age for the onset of depression was 29 and a half years old. So we all have ups and downs and we get low and a bit moody and irritable, but we're talking about depression now. 50 years later, take a guess, 14 and a half years old. So I have certainly seen it school-going kids with depression, and it's there's a lot of comparative living, a lot of people living vicariously through Facebook, but only seeing happy, slim, fun people on holiday doing nothing else but, you know, having a jolly good time, and leading to the oh poor me Victoria victim approach, where my life isn't quite as fun and fabulous as what I see on Facebook. So there are many contributing factors to people, this depression stat, and people not feeling on top of the game or battling economically. And certainly in an economic downturn, this is exacerbated, we know. And those of you who watched Carte Blanche 2 weeks ago would have seen the horrendous stats that we have on terms of the number of people living on the poverty line, and with the fuel price going up and the cost of groceries going up by another 30–40%, is that we have a bubbling cauldron of dynamic unhappiness in our country because of the severe economic times that we're going through. So what do we do? I mean, I'm getting pretty serious here, but how do we harness happiness day to day? Because it's not the external things that should be making us happy, it's the internal things. So it's a big topic, this, and I only wanted to share one thing with you, is that if you start to be more present in your body and more mindful, then there's a beautiful serotonin and dopamine effect that happens in the brain. And actually we get that triggered by a very simple act that we do automatically without thinking. But when we apply present mindfulness to it, this increases the amount of serotonin and dopamine going to the brain. And that is a breathing technique. So if you are truly interested in the science of this, then go to the HeartMath website. They're a .org organization, so it's just www.heartmath.org. And they have got a number of different scientific studies. I have become a practitioner and been fascinated with their electronic gadgets. So you are able to plug a gadget into your computer, put a little clip onto your ear, and it will measure the coherence of your heart and your ability to get into a relaxed breathing state. And it teaches you mindfulness through a breathing technique. So you can use that with your iPhone, you can use that on your desktop or laptop, and exercises to go with it. Because when your heart is in this coherent state, then the whole body gets into a beautiful rhythm between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. If technology and gadgets are not for you, and I have to say hand on heart, they are not for me either. So I do own these two gadgets, but I don't use them. I simply do use the trigger, funny enough. Celynn spoke about triggers earlier with your glass next to your toothbrush, but I use a trigger that every time I get into my car, and I travel a lot during the day, is when I put my hands on my steering wheel, I get into just that calm state before I drive off and navigate my way through busy traffic, is to do a breathing technique. And I use the simple one, the 4-7-8, which we've spoken about a lot. And that's breathing in for 4, holding for 7, and out for 8. So Google that if you want to see Dr. McCullough speak it through, but you don't have to. It's simply breathe in for 4, hold for 7, and out for 8. And I'm just going to quickly bridge to activations, is that when I do my 2 minutes plank in the morning, I use my 4-7-8 as well. But in terms of happiness, if we're just a little bit more grateful for what we have, we get into a present state, we get less overwhelmed by the lizard in our brain, as Celynn calls it, overwhelming our wizard. We certainly can just look at the internal locus of control. What can I be happy about? Because the economy, the environment, the planet, not looking so good at the moment, but actually I can find a path for Joni, Peddie, to really navigate this journey called life and appreciate what I have. So it's back to the very simple things in life to ignite happiness. So summarizing what we have, Celynn, if I can hand that over to you, but while Celynn is summarizing the 6 strategies, if I could also invite you to use the questions section on your control panel. So click to the left of the word questions. There's an arrow pointing sideways. Click on that and simply type in whatever questions. I can't read that on my control panel, so Celynn will alert me to the questions and one of us will answer. And then, as I said at the start of this webinar, it's really interesting to see what has percolated to the surface in different people's brains, because feel free here to steal with pride and see what someone else has come up with as a question, a concept, or a tiny habit that they want to take forward.
Great. So we've looked at 6 strategies, and some of you may have realized that that's an acronym that we've used, HEALTH. So HEALTH. And the first H we looked at was about harmony and how it's important it is, if we want to maintain health, is to maintain harmony specifically within our hormones. And we looked at the link between your gut and your brain. And the one recommendation that we have for you is to include more fermented foods such as sauerkraut and kefir. So maybe that's something you'd like to try. And we will share with you our super easy sauerkraut recipe, as well as the contacts for purchasing your own fermented foods if you'd like to do that. Then the E was around energy. And Joni spoke about how, just like the seasons, we need to be aware of our 24-hour cycle in a day. Perhaps for you, focusing on sleep is important, and really getting enough rest so that you can enjoy the summer and the spring when your energy levels are up, and realize that late afternoon and evenings perhaps are autumn and winter and we need to relax. Then we looked at activating and how motion can shift emotion. Perhaps you'd like to look at moving every hour, maybe just mid-morning, mid-afternoon. Perhaps you'll watch John Medina. He's got some really funky video clips on his website. And you can look at the first brain rule, which tells you about that factor in your brain, the BDNF. and that you can end up feeling like Don Peddie at 87, teaching aqua aerobics and running your own courses still. How incredible. Then we looked at L, which was around leading yourself first, and you need to be your first CEO, your own chief energy and chief health officer, before you can perhaps role model others, either in your home or in your business. An important part of leading yourself is to get a health check. So please do that. If you're not on a medical aid scheme that allows you to do these checks for free, you can pop into most pharmacies and check them out. If you'd like to know about the Wellculator application, how it could fit in with your business, or if you know of individuals who might be interested in it, please let us know. And remember that the choices you make today have unintended consequences and become the history tomorrow. And then we need to make sure that whatever we do is thought through. So that was around creating tiny habits and really making it easy to set ourselves up for success. And there were 3 things that I highlighted around this new behavior. So the motivation, the ability, and finding a trigger. So I'd love to know if there are any new behaviors that you'll be putting into place. Mention them under the question section. And Joni and I are really intrigued, because not only does it give us insights into what's important for you, but also maybe we can help you. So don't be shy. Feel free to share with us what it is that you think you can create a tiny habit around. And then lastly, this leads to great health, but more importantly, as Joni mentioned, it leads to happiness. And happiness truly is a wonderful advantage and the precursor to a meaningful life. If you're interested in happiness and meaning, feel free to get your hands on Sean's book, and you can get the details from us. It's also going to be in the recording of the webinar. And just remember that you don't have to buy a book. For free, you can just think about your heart and breathing. And there are beautiful techniques and free tools on the Heart Math website that you can use. And that is the summary of what we've spoken about this morning. So before I go on, Joni, is there anything else that you'd like to add in terms of the summary?
Just the sense of immediacy. So we know that we forget 70% of what we learn within 24 hours. So the sense of immediacy, before the sun sets tonight, you need to have implemented one thing. I challenge you, we challenge you, because it's imperative that we just inch our way forward on this journey of health, well-being, and resilience.
Wonderful. And I can see that a few of you are thinking about activating and about making better choices today. I love that you used the word today, because it isn't about being on a plan for a week or a month or a season. It really is just taking it one day at a time, and rather being consistent than too dramatic. And we'd love to nudge you. So we will be running webinars again. This is the first time we've done it in the morning. So we're not sure what suits people better. So our webinar that we did earlier in April, we did in the late afternoon. And then today we ran it at 8 o'clock. We'd love your feedback. Did this work for you? Would you prefer it in the afternoon? So perhaps just jot a comment there around, yes, you like the morning, or you prefer the afternoon, or perhaps a combination of both. We'd love to know what you think. And then Joni mentioned the recipe that she looked at, the one with the crumble on top and the fruit. If you'd like to get that recipe too, then we will send you a link, and you can just click on the link. We don't want to just assume that you all want to be added. So you'll get an email today from us, and it'll say, would you like to receive more information from Joni and Celynn? And that will include the Friday Foodie recipe. By the way, our recipes are always 5 ingredients or less. So they're quick and easy and simple, and that's exactly what tiny habits are about. And we'd love you to do what Joni's done. Print them out, and when you have the inclination, you know which recipes you can grab. And so thank you for being with us this morning. This has been recorded, and you have access to it. It comes out in the form of a video, so you'll also be able to see the slides. We will follow up and send you all the details that we've spoken about. And I'm just quickly scanning the questions to see if there's anybody that has anything else. Oh, I see. Thank you for the comment about a combination of morning and afternoon webinars being good. Much appreciated that. Somebody else is an early bird. Thank you, Kathy. Yes, I agree. It's good to be fresh when we on the webinar, unless you're oversleeping, as somebody did. No problem for those of you that overslept. You're not the only one, by the way. Joni did too, but she was here at the start, and we have recorded it, so you're welcome to download the video, and that you will receive in a couple of hours. It takes a few hours to get the video rendered. So on that note, Joni, I'll pass on to you, and if there's anything you'd like to wrap up with. Otherwise, everybody have a wonderful day. Enjoy the midweek break tomorrow, and we can't wait to see you at our next webinar. We'll send you those details.
So it's Freedom Day tomorrow. Be free to be happy is what I want to close with. And if you are not part of the Fab family, you'll see on the screen now that there is a section of our website that you can go to, and we would just love you to join up so that you get our newsletters, you get the Fab Friday recipe, which actually, because Celynn does that on her own, I am as excited as the rest of the Fab family to look at those on a Friday to see what I'm going to really surprise my family with, because I'm quite useless in the kitchen. So I'll get those 5 ingredients and impress them. But we really would like you to be part of this journey with us in boosting your Fab quotient and really igniting this awareness in the world. How do we experience resilient energy and fight fatigue using the Fab quotient? So thank you for joining in. We are always vociferous about ending on time, and we have got 30 seconds to go. So you've got an extra 30 seconds to go and implement your tiny habit. Have a great, great day. And thank you, Celynn. It was lovely working with you from afar.
Thank you, Joni. Time to come home.
Have a good day, everybody. Cheers for now.